Hello, guten Tag und grüß Gott. Today is December the 6th, 2022. December the 6th, had some significance in my childhood when I lived in Germany because it was also St. Nicholas Day. And this is when the Santa Clauses walked around, to see who was naughty and good. And sometimes they had kids always had a big rucksack of some sort, and with stuff in it, and they would be walking around town, and there would be several of them, but it was always, thought, well, this is Santa Claus, but usually they scared the crap out of us because they also had some sort of a switch with them, because they were looking who was naughty and nice. Anyway. And of course, we were always nice. That was the main thing. So sometimes, you got a piece of candy or something from them. But when you found one and there were a bunch of kids around, we'd follow him around, and then he'd turn around and yell at us or something, or say something nice. Anyway, so that was December 6th in Europe, in Germany. In a little town that I grew up in. Excuse me. Anyway, so just a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was up in the state of Washington, and I made a video on the snow, was shoveling snow and stuff. Well, yes, I did make it home okay, everything was fine, so I'm back from snow country, and I'm really glad that I'm back because Southern California, I mean, it may have its problems, in the politics and so forth, but it's, politics I don't agree with, that's what it is. Politics are always problematic, but, the weather is just incredible, so we had light rain, which is kind of good. Now, if that continues, that means our reservoirs might even fill, and we might have a nice snowpack, who knows? But in any case, rain in Southern California is a good thing. I mean, we wanted to take water from the ocean and had plans for a desalination plant, but the wisdom of the government said, "Oh no, we don't have a water shortage. You don't need that plant, so don't do it." But you know what? One of the old engineers from the company that I worked with, which was Southern California Edison Company, told me that back in 1949, they already had plans for desalination because, the people at that time, were looking at where the heck is the water going to come from if, the area, Los Angeles area grows as they had anticipated. And of course, I think it exceeded their wildest imagination. But there were people like Mulholland that figured it out, and so, Hoover Dam was built, and Lake Mead, and, the Colorado River was tapped, for water for Southern California. In any case, all of that water has kind of receded, so we're going through a dry cycle right now, and that's really a bad thing. But here we are. So I just want to briefly talk about, I promised, I had hopes for this red wave in Congress, that, we're going to, the Republicans are going to be in charge of Congress, for sure, with some sort of a substantial minority. Democrats are going to howl, unfair and so forth. And, the Senate, who knows? We weren't sure about the Senate, but, the midterm elections, usually people, want to see something new. And so they vote in people from the other party often. But you know what? It wasn't a red wave. It was, at most kind of a ripple, because right now there's still a Herschel Walker and this guy Warnock, are having a runoff in Georgia right now. And that'll tip the majority to the Democrats or to the Republicans. Actually, what it'll do is if Herschel Walker is a Republican wins, that means the Republicans will actually have a one vote majority. Otherwise, it'll be evenly split. And the vice president, which happens to be Kamala Harris right now, will definitely vote, you know, Democratic. All right. So that's what it was. But also a tragedy happened just a couple of days ago, and that is, the actress Christie Ally died, and she was only 71, only 71. Anyway, suddenly she developed cancer and passed away rather quickly. I mean, the cancer could have been around for a while; she just didn't know it, but. Once she started feeling bad, and evidently, according to the news articles, it was a recent development, and she passed away. So yeah, and of course, she was the main character, one of the main characters in the wildly popular show called Cheers in Boston, and we went to visit there at one time, actually a couple of times. It was kind of neat to go there and see the where supposedly Cheers was. I don't think they filmed much there because it was mostly on stage and so forth. Anyway, what else is going on in the world right now? Well, um, the ripple of the Republican wave, gave us a few seats majority in Congress. So Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker, decided to retire, and so now they have a new. Um, it's not a new speaker. Actually, the speaker won't be elected until, Congress actually is in session, which will be in January, I guess, and this is only December. But it's Christmas season, and we got our Christmas tree, and it's a wonderful tree. We decorated it, and I hope to make a video in front of the Christmas tree as well. Anyway, yeah, the Ukraine war just keeps plugging along. The Russians are not going to give up. Putin is not going to give up. He's been sending all kinds of drones and missiles into the infrastructure of the Ukraine. It's causing a lot of problems. And so the Ukrainians just recently retaliated somehow, and they sent drones and bombed a couple of their Russian airfields, deep into Russia, well 150 miles into Russia, evidently. And they may be able to go even further. And that kind of begs the question, were the Russians asleep at the switch? They didn't see the drones coming, or were there so many that they were overwhelmed? There isn't that much detail on that, but that's what's happening. So what else is happening in the world? Well, yeah, a terrible Ukraine war, and Russian occupation and all kinds. Our news cycle always talks about, how the Ukrainians are winning and all that kind of stuff. But they may be winning individual battles, and they may be, and the Russian. But you know what? I have the feeling that it's only because the Russians really are changing their strategy. And, who's in charge of that war? It's the Russians that are in charge of the war, and the Ukrainians, unfortunately, have to play, do a defensive war, and they're losing a lot of people. And I think that, the dead are already in the tens of thousands on either side, and that's just a friggin' tragedy. I can't believe it, that it's still going on. But I want to give you some other news. It was actually on December 3rd that we all of us here in the family got new iPhones. As a matter of fact, this is the superior iPhone camera that I'm, right now using in this particular blog, and we also got these. Oh, this is so cool. I don't know whether you can see this, but it's the Generation 8 or Series 8 iWatch, which also acts like a telephone. I mean, this thing is really freaking amazing, and hey, it's technology. What can I say? So this is our big Christmas present for this season, because that's pretty expensive. It was, I think the iPhones were right around somewhere around $1,000, and the we got a couple of watches, but it was a Black Friday sale. And so we did get some discounts, which is always welcome because everything is so friggin' expensive. It's I remember going to Costco and call it the $100 club because it's hard to get out of there without spending $100. Well, now, like I said once before, you go for the roast chicken, and by the time you get out of there and check out, it's $600. Crap, you know. Anyway, but in the meantime, we also got well, we also got a couple of new computers because our Surface computers are getting kind of ancient, and they no longer support Microsoft 11, and one of them, the screen cracked, so we had to replace them. But those were really good deals. They were, I think, well under $1,000 each, and so it was, well, what can we do? We have to have our computers, right? So there we are. Another thing that's really happening that right now, which is interesting, there are protests in places that you wouldn't think, protests would be tolerated, and they keep going on and on. One of them is in Iran. In Iran, the women and guys are protesting, the strict attire laws. For instance, the women have to have their hair covered, and I guess it's called a hijab, and that they, whenever they go outside, they have to have their hair because, it would infuriate or inflame the men's sexuality, and, and then it would be the women's fault, So if the men can't keep it in their pants, it's the women's fault. Well, I mean, the Muslims are about 700 years behind Christianity, and Christianity is about, I don't know, 2,500 years behind Judaism. And religions kind of have to evolve, they have to become. And so just recently we read in the newspapers, that, the morality police is going to be eliminated in Iran, and maybe they're going to loosen some of the restrictions. I'll tell you what, you give the women an inch, they'll take a mile, okay? Iran, be careful with that. Tread lightly, because pretty soon you're going to have them wearing pussy hats, And hey, this is not a good thing necessarily. It really degrades everything. Okay, maybe this was a little over the top, and my wife probably wants me to take that part out. But in any case, so human rights, women have also rights as men do, and in some of the Middle Eastern country, that is still in the process. So let's see, what else is new? Yeah, the Chinese, they've had it up to here with all the, zero tolerance of the COVID. And it's really interesting because they did not have the RNA vaccinations. I think they call it, now I can't remember exactly what it is, but, it's a pretty fancy stuff that was developed evidently by Pfizer and Moderna and some other companies here. And, it kind of put this whole thing, with COVID kind of in the rearview mirror. You don't see masks very much. And I think people that are still wearing masks, for the most part, they're just being polite because they happen to have a cold. Now, what's happening, though, is the flu virus is going nuts. And, nobody wants to really talk much about it, except the hospitals are saying, hey, we're getting a lot of young kids in here, So there's this virus, the flu virus, that evidently, we kind of lost our immunity for, and especially the children, because they were wearing masks, and, kids, in order to develop some immunity against some of those common diseases, that I was told, they have to eat a pound of dirt or something, and pick up stuff from the floor, and put it in their mouth, the finger in the nose, and then lick it. And I don't know what kids do, but I'm sure that anything goes. And some of it is important because it strengthens the immune system. They get constantly little colds and stuff like that. But ultimately, in my case, for instance, I rarely get sick nowadays. Of course, I did have some major things. Like the most recent major thing was cancer. So lung cancer. So that was pretty bad. But I've always been in an industrial environment. So I've been breathing crap. From the steel mills, and then later on in power plants, and so it kind of makes sense that you come down with something. But in any case, I digress here. I was a really sickly kid, and like I said, I'm in pretty good shape right now. I'm not really suffering from anything that I know of. And maybe that's attributed to being sick all the time. I did miss a lot of school because of illness. So I was like I said, a pretty sickly kid. Anyway, what else is new? Well, the market had a little bit of a rally, but we're still. This is kind of interesting, is that the market is reacting to what they think the Fed is going to do in terms of slowing down inflation. So here's what's happening. The economy is really cranking up, and job growth has been tremendous. And I don't have the numbers, but, as a matter of fact, jobs are really looking for people. And so that kind of puts steam into the economy. Well, the market then thinks, okay, the Fed's going to, instead of slowing down the rediscount rate, they were thinking, maybe 50 basis points instead of 75 basis points. But now with that news, of the jobs, being added, and so many jobs still wanting people, so the economy is gaining steam, and they probably want to slow that down. So the market reacts to that, and so it's 1 or 2% losses, all around. And but I mean, from my perspective, a strong and economy, I think, is a good thing. Inflation is not a good thing. And so now I'm talking about shit I don't know much about, because I need to be an economist. In any case, I just wanted to do a little bit video, kind of show, that I'm back, and, from the snow country, because the last video was snow country. I'm disappointed in how the elections went, but, so the Republicans wound up with, they're going to have the Speaker of the House, and then with the Senate, it's going to be kind of split. If Herschel doesn't win, then it's it's probably a good thing that it's 50-50. But it kind of reflects how we feel in this country about politics. So there isn't a whole lot of sway one way or the other. But altogether, I guess the country is recovering. Maybe the world is recovering. But what's really dragging on us is the Ukrainian war. And I really hope and pray that this comes to some sort of equitable conclusion. And, I don't wish Putin, an assassination on Putin and all that kind of stuff, he, well, I mean, he is the asshole that invaded the country, Ukraine. But on the other hand, he he thought that he was doing what he thought was best for the Russian people, and because he knows that he's going to be gone, but there's going to be a legacy, of what happens, and for some reason, which is not clear to me, he thought that the Ukraine just needed to be part of the Russian sphere of influence, kind of like we're thinking of South America. We don't tolerate the Russians in South America, And we're really keeping an eye on the Chinese, what they're doing over there in South America, because it's really under the sphere of influence of the United States. And so maybe it's understandable that you do want this kind of buffer. You don't want the West, but on the other hand, we're always thinking that we know how to govern. I'm not so sure about that. In any case, 20 minutes is plenty. So with this, I will bid you farewell. So long, auf Wiedersehen, and we must infect the universe with us.